The Veloci ambassador had never begged before. Her species considered it beneath their dignity. But dignity meant nothing when 43 worlds had been consumed by the Drevak swarm, and her own homeworld was next on the list. "Please," Lyra said, her 4 arms spread wide in supplication before the Galactic Council. "We have tried everything. Our fleets are broken. Our armies are dust. We need help from any species willing to fight." 17 species sat in the circular chamber of Haven's Edge Station. Most looked away. The Drevak were unstoppable. Everyone knew this. Helping the Veloci meant dying alongside them. Then the human ambassador raised his hand. Samuel Price was an old man with white hair and a gentle smile. Humans had joined the collective 60 years ago and had never caused trouble. They traded fairly, made beautiful art, and kept to themselves. No one had ever seen a human warship. Most species assumed they did not have any. "Earth will help," Samuel said quietly. The chamber fell silent. Ambassador Lyra stared at him with confusion. "Respectfully, Ambassador Price, the Drevak have billions of warrior forms. What can your people offer?" Samuel's smile did not change. "We have specialists for this kind of problem. I will need to contact my government for authorization." He left the chamber without explaining further. Deep beneath the mountains of a continent called North America, a facility existed that appeared on no maps. It had been built over 80 years, carved from solid rock, powered by reactors that would run for centuries. Commander Grace Webb had spent her entire adult life in this facility, waiting for a message that she believed might never come. The message arrived at 3:47 hours, encoded with authorization keys that had not been used since the facility's construction. Grace read it twice, then she smiled. It was not a warm smile. She walked through corridors that stretched for kilometers, passing through security checkpoints manned by personnel who had never seen the sun. Finally, she reached the central chamber, a vast space filled with rows of cryogenic pods stretching into the darkness. 2,400 pods, 2,400 sleepers, 2,400 carefully selected individuals who had been waiting for this moment. The selection process had taken 15 years to develop. Earth psychologists had identified specific neurological patterns: reduced empathy, heightened aggression, pattern recognition. That bordered on supernatural and a complete absence of fear. In civilian society, these individuals were problems. They could not hold jobs, maintain relationships, or follow rules that made no sense to them. They were predators born into a world that had no place for predators. Until now, Grace initiated the awakening sequence for the first pod. Frost cracked and fell away as the seal broke. Medical technicians rushed forward with warming blankets and nutrient solutions. The woman inside opened her eyes. They were pale blue and utterly empty of warmth. "Rita Kowalski," Grace said. "Prometheus Division, First Response Unit, you have been in stasis for 12 years. There is a war and Earth needs you." Rita sat up slowly, ignoring the technicians trying to check her vitals. She looked at Grace with an expression that most humans would find deeply unsettling, like being watched by something that was deciding whether you were worth eating. "How many targets?" Rita asked. Her voice was calm, almost bored. "Billions, an alien swarm species called the Drevak. They have consumed 43 worlds and cannot be reasoned with." Rita considered this. Then she smiled. Unlike Grace's smile, Rita's was genuine. "Billions, that sounds like fun. When do we leave?" Grace had studied Rita's file extensively. Before recruitment, she had been diagnosed with severe antisocial personality disorder. She had been arrested 11 times before age 20. She had killed 2 men in what was officially ruled self-defense, but what the investigating officers privately called a very efficient ambush. She was, by every clinical definition, a psychopath. She was also exactly what the Prometheus program had been designed to find. "You leave in 72 hours, Grace said. "We are waking the others now. You will command First Response Unit, 400 operatives for initial deployment." Rita swung her legs off the pod and stood. The medical technician stepped back involuntarily. She noticed this and her smile widened. "The aliens who asked for help," Rita said. "Do they know what we are?" "No. Are you going to tell them?" Grace considered the question. "They asked for soldiers. We are sending them something better. What they do not know will not hurt them." Rita laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "No, what they do not know will hurt our enemies. That is the whole point." She walked toward the facility's training section, already thinking about the campaign ahead. Behind her, more pods began to open. More sleepers began to wake. 2,400 predators bred and trained for a single purpose, stirring from their long sleep. The galaxy had called for help. Earth had answered. But the galaxy did not understand what it had asked for. It did not understand what humanity had built in secret, what they had preserved instead of eliminated, what they had turned into a weapon. The collective thought humans were peaceful traders and artists. They were about to learn the truth. Humans had not evolved on a gentle world. Earth was a planet where everything killed everything else, and humans had not survived by being kind. They had survived by being the most efficient killers their world had ever produced. The Drevak swarm had consumed 43 worlds. They had never faced a species that considered them prey. That was about to change. Admiral Chorus had commanded fleets for 40 years. He had seen battle. He had seen death. He thought nothing could frighten him anymore. Then the human ships arrived. They emerged from hyperspace without warning, 12 vessels painted in black and gray, their hulls covered in angular plates that seemed designed to intimidate rather than protect. They did not match any configuration in collective databases. They did not respond to standard greeting protocols. They simply appeared like predators emerging from tall grass. "Prometheus Division reporting for deployment," the lead ship broadcast, "requesting coordinates for forward command base." Chorus stood on the bridge of his flagship, surrounded by officers who had stopped working to stare at the view screens. The human ships looked wrong. Military vessels from collective species were smooth, elegant, designed to inspire confidence. These ships looked like they had been built by something that wanted its enemies to feel afraid. "Admiral," his communications officer said quietly, "they are requesting landing clearance for personnel shuttles." "How many personnel?" 800, sir." Chorus felt confusion replace his unease. The Drevak had billions of warrior forms. What could 800 soldiers accomplish? The shuttles landed at Station Kira 3 hours later. Chorus went to greet them personally, bringing a delegation of Veloci officers and a team of psychologists. Standard protocol required mental evaluation of all Allied forces before joint. Deployment. The shuttle doors opened. The humans who emerged did not look like soldiers. They wore simple gray uniforms without rank insignia or decoration. They moved in perfect silence, spreading across the landing bay in patterns that seemed random but somehow covered every angle of approach. Their eyes swept constantly, noting exits, obstacles, potential threats. A woman walked forward. She was average height with short, dark hair and pale blue eyes. She moved like water flowing around stones, effortless, inevitable. "Rita Kowalski," she said. "Prometheus Division First Response Commander, you must be Admiral Chorus." "I am," Chorus replied. "Welcome to Station Kira 9. We are grateful for Earth's assistance, though I confess I expected more personnel." Rita smiled. Chorus felt his stomach tighten. "Quality over quantity, Admiral. May I speak with your command staff about deployment strategy?" The briefing room fell silent as Rita explained how Prometheus Division operated. "We do not hold defensive lines," she said. "We do not protect territory, we break things. Specifically, we break the enemy's will to fight. The Drevak operate on collective instinct. If the hive mind experiences sufficient trauma that fear spreads across their entire species, we are going to make them afraid." A Veloci general named Torek spoke up. "With respect, Commander, the Drevak do not feel fear. They are biological machines programmed for consumption." "Everything feels fear," Rita replied. Even machines can be taught to avoid pain. We are very good teachers. After the briefing, the collective's psychological evaluation team requested interviews with Prometheus personnel. Standard protocol. Every allied species submitted to mental health screening. The results arrived on Admiral Chorus's desk 6 hours later. He read them 3 times, certain there had been an error. Every human soldier had failed the evaluation, not by small margins, by measurements so extreme that the testing software flagged them as malfunctions. Fear responses were absent or inverted. Empathy markers registered at clinical 0. Aggression thresholds were backwards, meaning situations that should trigger retreat instead triggered advance. By collective standards, every single Prometheus operative was dangerously insane. Chorus summoned Ambassador Price to his office. "Explain this," he demanded, pushing the report across his desk. Samuel Price read the findings without expression. Then he set the document down and met Chorus's eyes. "Admiral, what you are reading is not a malfunction. It is the selection criteria. Prometheus operatives are chosen specifically because they possess these traits. In human society, they are considered defective. They cannot function in normal life. They are predators without prey. You are telling me Earth sent us mentally ill soldiers. I am telling you Earth sent you the most dangerous beings our species has ever produced. Humans have always had individuals like this. Most civilizations eliminate them. We found a use for them instead." Chorus felt cold. What use? They fight wars that normal soldiers cannot win. They do things that would break ordinary minds. They are not bothered by horror because they do not process it the way you or I do. They are weapons, Admiral, very precise, very effective weapons. And when the war ends, what happens to your weapons then? Price's expression flickered, something sad, something tired. They go back to sleep. Prometheus operatives cannot live in peacetime. They know this. They accept it. Service gives them purpose. It is the only purpose they will ever have. Chorus sat in silence for a long moment. He thought about the 43 worlds consumed by the swarm. He thought about his own homeworld, waiting helplessly for destruction. He thought about what he was willing to accept in exchange for survival. "How soon can your people begin operations?" he asked finally. Price smiled, the same gentle, grandfatherly smile he always wore. "Commander Kowalski has already requested permission to deploy a demonstration team, 4 operatives. She promises results within 48 hours. 4 against a planetary occupation. Trust us, Admiral, 4 is enough. 4 is more than enough." Chorus authorized the mission. He would spend the rest of his life wondering if that decision had been right. The Drevak warrior form died without understanding what killed it. One moment it was patrolling the ruined streets of what had been a Veloci city. The next moment something hit its neck, and everything stopped working. It collapsed into the dust. Its last sensory input a glimpse of a small human woman stepping over its body like it was a fallen log. Yuki Tanaka did not slow down. She had already identified her next 3 targets. Behind her, the rest of the team moved through the occupied zone like shadows given purpose. Rita had chosen her demonstration team carefully. Yuki for infiltration, Dmitri for heavy work, Omar for communications and psychological operations, herself for command, 4 humans against a planetary occupation. The Drevak had held threshold for 6 months. 800 million Veloci had lived here before the swarm arrived. Now the cities were breeding grounds, the population converted into biological material for new warrior forms. Standard Drevak procedure. Standard did not account for what was coming. "Contact ahead," Omar whispered through their communication implants. "Patrol formation, 60 warrior forms, standard sweep pattern." Rita considered the numbers, 60 to 4. Terrible odds by any normal calculation. "Dmitri, you have point. Everyone else follow my lead. We are not here to hide." Dmitri Volkov was the largest member of the team, built like something designed for breaking down walls. He grinned in the darkness. an expression that had made hardened criminals back away during his previous life. Finally, he said, I was getting bored. The Drevak patrol detected them 30 seconds later. 60 warrior forms turned as one, their hive mind processing the impossible data. 4 beings walking openly toward them, showing no fear, making no attempt to flee. The engagement lasted 4 minutes. When it ended, Rita stood in a circle of broken Drevak bodies, her gray uniform spotted with alien fluids. She was not breathing hard. None of her team was injured. 60 warrior forms had died, and the humans had treated it like light exercise. Omar, she said, make sure the hive mind saw that. I want every Drevak on this planet to know what just happened. Omar nodded. Psychological warfare was his specialty. He had spent years studying how collective species process trauma. The Drevak hive mind was not just a communication network. It was a shared consciousness. Every warrior form experienced what others experienced. If you could create enough fear in enough individuals, that fear would spread. They moved deeper into occupied territory. The next encounter was larger, 200 warrior forms guarding a breeding facility. The team did not engage directly this time. Instead, they spent 6 hours dismantling the facility's infrastructure from within, appearing and disappearing like ghosts, killing guards one by one in ways designed to maximize horror. When dawn broke, the surviving Drevak had abandoned the facility. They had not been ordered to retreat. They had simply fled, their individual survival instincts overriding hive mind commands. This was unprecedented. Drevak did not run. Until now. Admiral Chorus watched the operation through orbital surveillance. His officers gathered around the display in shocked silence. The humans were not fighting like any soldiers he had ever seen. They were not holding positions or securing objectives. They were hunting. They moved through the Drevak occupation like apex predators culling a herd, selecting targets, striking, vanishing, striking again. How is this possible? General Torek asked quietly. 4 soldiers are destabilizing an occupation that our entire fleet failed to break. Chorus had no answer. On the surface, the demonstration continued. Rita led her team toward the central hive structure, the heart of the Drevak presence on threshold. Thousands of warrior forms waited there, but they were no longer coordinating properly. The hive mind was infected with something it had never experienced before: doubt, uncertainty, fear. The team did not attack the central hive. They did not need to. Instead, they sat on a hill overlooking the structure and waited. Dmitri hummed quietly. Yuki cleaned her equipment. Omar monitored communications. They are trying to figure out what we are, Omar reported. The hive mind is cycling through threat classifications. They have never encountered a predator species before. They do not have protocols for this. Good, Rita said. Let them think, let them imagine what we might do next. The waiting is part of the lesson. 12 hours later, the Drevak began evacuating Threshold. They left in waves, abandoning a planet they had spent 6 months conquering, fleeing from 4 humans who had killed perhaps 300 of their number. The logic made no sense by military calculations. But war was not always about logic. Sometimes it was about fear. Sometimes it was about breaking something inside your enemy that could never be repaired. Rita contacted Station Kira 9 as the last Drevak transports lifted off. Demonstration complete. Threshold is clear, requesting extraction. Admiral Chorus responded personally. His voice was strange, caught between relief and horror. Commander Kowalski, please explain. How did 4 soldiers accomplish this? Rita watched the retreating Drevak ships, her pale eyes empty of triumph or satisfaction. She had done her job, that was all. The Drevak learned what we are, Admiral. Now they are running. The question is simple. Do you want us to let them run, or do you want us to follow? Chorus was silent for a long time. Follow them, he said finally. End this. Rita smiled. Understood. We will need the full division for that. Wake everyone. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. 17 species representatives sat frozen in their seats, staring at holographic displays showing footage from the war. Prometheus Division operations across 7 systems. Drevak forces retreating on every front. Worlds being liberated at a pace that seemed impossible. And the methods. A delegate from the Morath Collective stood abruptly and left the chamber. The sound of him vomiting echoed from the corridor outside. No one moved to help him. Ambassador Price stood at the center of the room, his hands clasped behind his back, his expression calm. He had watched the footage himself. He understood why they were disturbed. He did not care. 43 worlds, he said quietly. 800 million Veloci, 2 billion Karathi, countless others, consumed, turned into raw material for Drevak reproduction. You asked us to stop it. We are stopping it. A Veloci representative spoke, her voice shaking. We did not ask for this. We asked for soldiers, not monsters. You asked for victory. Victory has costs. Would you prefer defeat? Silence. Price continued. The Prometheus Division has suffered 47 casualties in 3 months of continuous operations. Your combined fleets lost 47,000 trying to hold a single system. We are saving lives. The math is simple. The math is not the problem, said High Arbiter Collies of the Serethi Dominion. The problem is what this reveals about your species. You bred these soldiers. You selected for these traits. You built them like weapons. What kind of civilization does this? A surviving one. The Council voted on whether to terminate the human alliance. The motion failed, but barely. 12 species voted against humanity. 5 voted to continue. 3 months of war, 3 months of Prometheus operations, and the collective was more afraid of their allies than their enemies. On Station Kira 9, Commander Grace Webb received the political reports with mild interest. Politics were not her concern. Her concern was the 2,400 individuals under her command and the mission they had been awakened to complete. But she was noticing problems. Extended deployment was affecting even her carefully selected operatives. The Prometheus program had not been designed for sustained operations. The soldiers were meant to be used in short bursts, then returned to stasis. 3 months was pushing their psychological limits. She found Rita in a training room, practicing combat forms against holographic opponents. The movements were perfect, mechanical. Rita's face was blank. Commander Kowalski, status report. Rita did not stop moving. All units operational, ready for next deployment phase. The Drevak are consolidating at their homeworld. Intelligence suggests a final stand. That is not what I asked. I asked for your status. Rita finally paused. She turned to face Grace. Her pale eyes were somehow emptier than usual. I am functional. You are dreaming. Medical reports show increased REM activity. You have not dreamed in 12 years of monitored sleep. Rita was quiet for a moment. The dreams are not pleasant. They are not unpleasant either. They simply are. I do not know what they mean. What do you dream about? Nothing. I dream about nothing. Empty space. Silence. It should be peaceful. Somehow it is not. Grace understood. Rita was designed for war. She had no framework for processing anything else. Peace was literally incomprehensible to her. The dreams were her mind trying to imagine something it could not construct. When the war ends, Grace said carefully, what do you want to happen? Rita considered the question. I want to go back to sleep. There is nothing for me in peacetime. I knew this when I volunteered. I accepted it. I am not complaining. You are not complaining, but are you satisfied? Satisfaction is not something I experience. Purpose is enough. The war gives me purpose. When it ends, purpose ends. Sleep is the only alternative. I am content with this. Grace nodded slowly. This was the bargain Prometheus operatives made, service in exchange for purpose, sleep in exchange for peace they could never feel. It was not cruelty, it was pragmatism. People like Rita could not exist in normal society. War was the only place they belonged. The intelligence report arrived that evening. The Drevak were consolidating their remaining forces at their homeworld, billions of warrior forms for a final defense. More importantly, They had broadcast a message on all frequencies. A surrender offer. The terms were unprecedented. The Drevak would accept any conditions the collective demanded. They would withdraw from all contested space. They would pay reparations. They would submit to monitoring. They would agree to anything. Except one thing. Human forces must never be deployed against them again. Commander Webb read the message 3 times. Then she forwarded it to Earth with a single question. Do we accept or do we finish this? Earth's response came 12 hours later. The answer was clear. No. The reasoning was simple. A species that surrendered from fear rather than genuine change would rebuild, would remember, would return. The Drevak had consumed 43 worlds. Mercy would dishonor the dead. Mercy would guarantee future victims. Rita received the orders without expression. She gathered her unit commanders for a final briefing. Full deployment, she said. All 2,400 operatives, we are going to their homeworld. We are going to end this permanently. Dmitri grinned. He had survived 3 months of war and found himself enjoying every moment. Finally, I was worried they would surrender before we got to the good part. Rita looked at him. There is no good part, Dmitri. There is only the necessary part. Remember that. The full Prometheus division mobilized. The galaxy held its breath. The sky above Hive Prime burned. Human assault craft descended through clouds of anti-air fire, their pilots weaving through destruction with inhuman precision. Below, billions of Drevak warrior forms waited in formations that covered the landscape like a living carpet. The hive mind screamed commands: fight, kill, survive. But beneath those commands was something new, something the Drevak had learned to feel over 3 months of war. Terror. Rita's craft hit the ground hard, and she was moving before the doors finished opening. Around her, Prometheus operatives poured onto the surface, spreading into combat formations drilled into them through decades of training. 2,400 humans against billions of Drevak. The battle began. There was no strategy the collective would recognize, no defensive lines or tactical retreats. The humans simply advanced, carving through Drevak formations like fire through dry grass. Warrior forms threw themselves at the invaders in waves, and the waves broke, every time. Dmitri fought at the front, laughing as he moved. His weapons ran dry, and he continued with his hands. A dozen warrior forms surrounded him, and he killed them all. Then he picked up their weapons and kept going. This is the good part, he shouted. This is why we were born. Yuki moved through the chaos like a ghost, appearing behind enemy lines to destroy command structures before vanishing again. The Drevak could not track her. Their hive mind processed her presence in 100 different locations simultaneously, each report contradicting the others. Omar coordinated psychological operations from a mobile command post, broadcasting carefully designed signals into the hive mind's frequencies. Not words. The Drevak did not understand words. Instead, he broadcast emotions: fear, despair, hopelessness. The same feelings they had inflicted on 43 worlds now reflected back at them. And Rita led the strike team toward the central hive. The queen waited there, the controlling intelligence of the entire species. Killing her would not end the swarm. Individual Drevak could survive without her. But she was their coordinator, their strategist, their mother in every meaningful sense. Without her, they would become animals instead of an army. The approach took 6 hours, 6 hours of constant combat through the most heavily defended position in Drevak space. Rita lost soldiers, not many, but some. She noted each death without emotion and continued forward. Finally, they breached the central chamber. The queen was massive, a bloated form connected to the hive mind through millions of neural tendrils. She could not move, could not fight. She could only think. And right now, she was thinking about the creatures who had invaded her world. Why, she asked through a translator organism. The voice was surprisingly soft. Why are you this way? Rita stood before her, covered in the fluids of countless warrior forms, her weapons empty, her hands steady. You consumed 43 worlds. You killed billions. Did you expect no consequences? Other species flee. Other species die. That is the natural order. Prey does not hunt predators. Humans are not prey. What are you then? Rita considered the question. She thought about Earth, the death world that had spawned her species. She thought about millions of years of evolution where everything killed everything else. She thought about the specific chain of circumstances that had created people like her. We are what happens when prey stops running, she said. We are what happens when a species decides to become the thing that everything else fears. Your mistake was assuming you were at the top of the food chain. You were wrong. The Queen's translator organism conveyed something like resignation. Will you kill me now? Yes. Will you kill all of us? Only if you make us. Surrender completely, give up expansion forever, submit to monitoring, and you may survive as a species. Refuse, and we will end you, not today maybe, not tomorrow, but eventually. We are very patient. The Queen was silent for a long moment. The hive mind processed her thoughts across an entire world. Billions of Drevak waited for her decision. We surrender, she said finally. Truly this time, we did not understand what we were facing. Now we do. We will never threaten your collective again. Rita nodded. Then she raised her weapon. Your surrender is accepted, but you still need to die. Your species needs new leadership, leadership that remembers this day. She fired. 3 weeks later, Rita stood in a cryogenic facility on Earth, watching as her fellow operatives entered their pods one by one. The war was over. The Drevak were broken. The collective was saved. Commander Webb approached her. You can stay awake if you want. You have earned retirement. Rita shook her head. Retirement is not for people like me. I do not know how to live without war. I do not want to learn. Sleep is better. And if we need you again, then wake me. That is the deal. That is why we exist. She climbed into her pod without looking back. The cold embraced her, and she closed her eyes. She dreamed of nothing. Above, on the surface, Ambassador Price addressed the Galactic Council one final time. Our soldiers are sleeping now, he said. They will sleep until they are needed again. We hope that day never comes, but if it does, remember what you have seen. Remember what we are capable of, and remember this: humanity's monsters serve humanity's conscience. They are pointed away from friends. Keep them pointed away. The galaxy had called for help. Earth had answered. And now, deep beneath the mountains, 2,400 predators slept in frozen silence, waiting for the next time the universe needed monsters. Some species eliminated their darkness. Humanity had simply learned to aim it.